After my husband beat me, I went to bed without a word. I didn't cry when his hand landed. I didn't scream when the door slammed. I tasted blood, counted breaths, and learned something important about silence. By morning, the house smelled like butter and sugar, pancakes, bacon, coffee strong enough to cut through denial. I set the table with care. Linen pressed, silver polished, plates warmed. I wore the blue dress he liked because it made me look agreeable, small, forgiving. He came down the stairs yawning, king of a kingdom he thought he owned. He smiled at the spread and said, "Good, you finally understood." That's when he saw who was sitting at the table. His expression changed instantly. Let me tell you how we got here. We met young, the kind of young that mistakes intensity for love. He was charming in public, decisive in private. I mistook control for protection. I mistook jealousy for devotion. When he proposed, he said he'd take care of everything. I believed him because I wanted rest. I wanted safety. I wanted to be chosen. At first, I was. Then the edges sharpened. Comments about my clothes, my friends, the way I spoke. The apologies came wrapped in gifts. The promises came with conditions. I learned to edit myself until there was very little left to correct. The first time he hit me, he cried afterward. The second time, he blamed the stress. By the third, he didn't bother with either. Patterns don't announce themselves. They repeat until you stop pretending they're accidents. I noticed the other changes too. Late nights, a new password, a phone tilted away from me like a secret being sheltered. I didn't confront him. I watched. I listened. I learned his schedule better than he knew mine. The proof arrived quietly, a message preview lighting his phone on the counter, a name I didn't recognize, a photo that didn't need explanation. I felt the ache bloom and then settle, heavy and manageable, like a weight you decide to carry instead of drop. That night, he came home angry. The accusation didn't need words. The beating didn't need a reason. I went to bed without a word, because words are wasted on people who only hear what excuses them. That's when the planning began. I documented everything. Dates, times, photos, bank statements. I copied files to a drive he'd never think to search for, because it lived in a box labeled taxes. I scheduled a doctor's appointment and asked for notes. I called a lawyer and didn't cry on the phone. Crying complicates advice. I opened a separate account in my name, transferred only what was legally mine, and left the rest untouched so no one could call me reckless. I emailed his employer from a new address and asked about their domestic violence policy, phrasing it as a hypothetical. I invited his mother for breakfast, using the tone reserved for good daughters-in-law. I invited his boss with a promise of gratitude. I invited a uniform I'd memorized from the precinct down the street. The night before, I slept well. In the morning, he laughed when he saw the spread. Then he froze. His mother sat straight-backed, hands folded, eyes already wet. His boss looked confused, then wary. The officer stood near the counter, professional and calm. And me? I poured coffee like a hostess, not a victim. I slid a folder across the table. Photos first, then messages, then medical notes, then bank records that told a story of money used to buy silence and punish resistance. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. He tried, of course he did. Jokes, then anger, then promises. The officer asked him to sit. His boss stood. His mother covered her mouth like the room had tilted. "Good," I said, tasting the word he'd used on me. "You finally understand." The cuffs were quiet. The shame wasn't. Later, when the house was empty, I sat at the same table and ate a pancake. It was fluffy, perfectly cooked. I hadn't made them for him. I'd made them for myself to prove I could still do ordinary things on a day my life changed. The divorce took months. Justice usually does, but the truth doesn't forget how to walk once you let it out of the room. I didn't win because I hurt him back. I won because I chose timing over temper, evidence over emotion, silence over screaming. I rose because I stopped asking permission to be safe. Now, when I smell coffee in the morning, I remember the sound his certainty made when it broke, and I smile, not because I'm cruel, but because I'm free.